The alarm bells rang through Luna Station like thunder. Admiral Jake Morrison ran down the metal hallways, his boots making loud sounds on the floor. He had never heard this alarm before. It meant something new, something from space. "What do we have?" Jake asked as he entered the command center. The room was full of people looking at screens and pushing buttons. Everyone looked worried. "Sir, we got a signal," said Lieutenant Commander Laura Price. She pointed at the big screen on the wall. "It came from outside our solar system. The computer says it's not from any human ship." Jake felt his heart beat faster. Humans had been looking for aliens for hundreds of years. They had found empty planets and dead rocks, but never any living beings. Now something was talking to them. "Put it on the main screen," Jake said. The screen changed. A tall figure appeared. It looked like it was made of blue crystal. Light moved through its body like water. It had no face that humans could understand, but somehow Jake knew it was looking at him. "People of Earth," the creature said. Its voice was cold and clear. "I am High Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. We have watched your kind spread across the stars like a disease. This ends now." Ambassador Lisa Grant stepped forward. She was Earth's best diplomat. She had solved many problems with words instead of weapons. "We greet you in peace, High Commander. Humanity seeks friendship with all beings in the galaxy." The alien did not seem to care about her words. "Your species has no right to leave your home system. You are young and wild. You do not understand the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for 2,000 years. We mean no harm," Lisa said. "We only want to explore and learn." "Your wants do not matter," Vextar replied. "The Zephyrian Empire controls 3-star systems and 800 worlds. We have brought peace and order to countless species. You will follow our rules or face the consequences." Jake stepped next to Lisa. He was a soldier, not a diplomat, but he understood threats. "What exactly are you demanding?" "All human colonies beyond your sun's reach must be abandoned. Every human must return to Earth. You have 1 standard year to complete this task. If you refuse, we will take corrective action." Dr. Amy Collins was watching from the back of the room. She studied alien life, even though she had never seen any before today. She looked at the creature's crystal body and the way light moved inside it. These beings were very different from humans. "High Commander," Lisa said, "we have over 200 million people living on other worlds. They have built homes and lives there. Surely we can find another solution." "There is no other solution," Vextar said. "Your species spreads too fast and cares nothing for order. On every world you touch, you bring chaos. You fight among yourselves. You change things. Without thinking, this cannot continue." General Pete Davis was also in the room. He commanded Earth's military forces. He did not like the way this alien talked to them. "And if we refuse your demand?" The crystal being seemed to grow brighter. "Then we will remove you ourselves. The Yi. Zephyrian fleet has ended the expansion of 17 species. Your primitive weapons cannot stop us. Your small ships cannot fight our mighty vessels. Choose wisely." Jake looked around the room. Every person there knew this was the most important moment in human history. A powerful alien empire was giving them a choice: give up everything they had built among the stars, or fight a war they could not win. "We need time to discuss this with our government," Lisa said. "You have 1 year," Vextar repeated. "When that time ends, we will return for your answer. Do not try to contact us again. Do not try to find us. We will know if you attempt to build weapons or move your military forces, accept our terms and live in peace on your home world, refuse and face extinction. The screen went dark. The alien was gone, but his words stayed in the air like poison. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Jake turned to his communications officer. Get President Carl Bradley on the line. Priority 1. We need to call an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. Yes, sir, the officer said, and started working at his station. Amy stepped forward. Admiral, did you see how the light moved through its body? These beings are not like us at all. Their technology, their biology, everything is different. Different how? Jake asked. They seem to be made of some kind of living crystal. They probably live much longer than we do. They think differently. To them, we probably look like children playing with dangerous toys. General Davis shook his head. I don't care what they're made of. No one tells humanity where we can and cannot live. Pete. We need to be smart about this, Lisa said. They claim to control 3 star systems. That's more space and resources than we can imagine. If they have the power to back up their words, we could be facing our extinction. Jake looked at the dark screen where the alien had been. What do we know about their empire? Amy pulled up. Data on her tablet. From what he said, they've been in power for 2,000 years. They've stopped 17 other species from expanding. They seem to value order and control above everything else. And they see us as chaos, Jake said. Exactly. Humans do fight among ourselves. We do change things quickly. We don't ask permission before we explore new worlds or try new ideas. To a species that values order, we must seem very dangerous. Pete crossed his arms. So what? Should we just give up everything we've worked for because some crystal alien doesn't like the way we live? That's not our decision to make, Lisa said. The President and the Council will decide, but we need to give them all the information we have. Jake nodded. Amy, I want you to study everything about that transmission. Learn everything you can about their biology and technology. Pete, start reviewing our military capabilities. Lisa, prepare a full diplomatic report. What about the colonies? Laura asked. Should we warn them? Jake thought for a moment. Yes. They have a right to know what's coming, but tell them to stay calm and wait for orders from Earth. As the meeting broke up, Jake stood alone looking at the empty screen. He had fought in many battles and faced many enemies, but he had never faced anything like this. The Zephyrians had given humanity 1 year to choose between freedom and survival. He wondered which one they would pick. President Carl Bradley sat at the big table in the emergency meeting room. Around him were the leaders of every nation on Earth. The room was quiet, but everyone was thinking the same thing. An alien empire wanted humanity to give up the stars. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said the president. These Zephyrians want us to abandon every colony we have built. Every world where humans live beyond our solar system. They want over 200 million people to come back to Earth. That's correct, Mr. President, said Ambassador Lisa Grant. She had flown to Earth as soon as the alien message ended. They gave us 1 year to comply or they will use force. The leader of the European Federation shook her head. Where would we put 200 million people? Earth is already crowded. Many of our colonies exist because people needed new places to live. Chief Engineer Sophie Barnes stood up. She had helped build many of the human colonies. Sir, it's not just about the people. Our colonies produce food, minerals, and energy that Earth needs. New Geneva makes medicine that saves millions of lives. Kepler Station builds the ships that carry supplies between worlds. If we abandon everything, Earth's economy will collapse. What about their threat? Asked the representative from Asia. Do they really have the power to destroy us? General Pete Davis opened his folder. Based on what we saw in their transmission, yes. Their technology is far beyond ours. Admiral Morrison believes they could defeat our entire fleet without much trouble. Then we have no choice, said someone from the back. We have to do what they want. No, said President Bradley firmly. We always have a choice. The room erupted in arguments. Some people wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to fight. A few suggested they should just run away and find new worlds far from Zephyrian space. Lisa stood up and waited for the room to get quiet. Mr. President, I request permission to try diplomacy one more time. Perhaps if we explain our position better, they might understand. They seem pretty clear about their demands, Pete said. Yes, but we didn't get a chance to really talk. Maybe if we show them we're not the chaotic species they think we are, they'll change their minds. Sophie shook her head. You heard what they said. We're too different from them. They've been in control for 2,000 years. They don't change their minds. So what do you suggest? The president asked. Sophie looked around the room. We tell them no. We make it clear that humans don't abandon their families and homes because someone threatens them. Then we prepare for war. A war we cannot win, someone pointed out. Maybe, Sophie said, but at least we'll go down fighting for what we believe in. The president looked at each person in the room. These were smart people who had helped humanity reach the stars. If they couldn't find a solution, maybe there wasn't one. I want to hear from the colonies, he said. Get me the governors of our 5 largest settlements. A few minutes later, the screen on the wall showed 5 people from different worlds. Governor Rick Palmer from New Geneva looked tired. Governor Helen Ross from Proxima Colony seemed angry. The others looked worried but determined. You've all heard about the alien demands, President Bradley said. I need to know what your people are thinking. Rick spoke first. Mr. President, my people have lived here for 30 years. This is their home. They've buried their parents in this soil and raised their children under this sun. You can't ask them to just leave everything behind. The Zephyrians might not give us a choice, the president replied. Helen leaned forward. Sir, with respect, there's always a choice. My grandfather didn't leave Earth because someone told him to. He left because he wanted to build something better. We're not running away from home. This is home. The other governors agreed. Nobody wanted to abandon their worlds, but they also understood the danger. What if we offered to limit our expansion? Suggested Governor Maria Santos from Titan Base. We could promise not to build any new colonies for 100 years. Lisa shook her head. They don't want us to slow down. They want us to stop completely. To them, we're a virus that spreads too fast. Then we fight, said Governor Ross simply. With what? Asked General Davis. Our biggest ships carry 50 people. Their smallest ship in the transmission looked like it could hold 1,000. Our weapons are fusion bombs and railguns. Theirs can destroy planets. We have something they don't, said Sophie quietly. What's that? The president asked. We have humans. Everyone looked at her. She continued. These Zephyrians have ruled for 2,000 years. They've stopped 17 species from expanding. They've probably never faced a real challenge. They think in patterns. They follow rules. They value order above everything else. And that helps us how? Pete asked. Humans don't follow patterns. We improvise. We adapt. We do things that don't. make sense to anyone else. That alien today expected us to either submit or run away. He probably never considered that we might actually fight back. President Bradley thought about this. You're saying our unpredictability is a weapon. I'm saying it's the only weapon we have. The room was quiet for a moment. Then the president made his decision. Admiral Morrison will draft our response to the Zephyrians. We will explain that humanity cannot and will not abandon our colonies. We will offer to meet with them to discuss peaceful coexistence. But we will make it clear that we are not leaving our homes. And if they refuse, asked Lisa, then we prepare for war. Sophie, I want you to start working on new weapons and defenses. Use anything we learned from their transmission. Pete, review our military capabilities and start training exercises. Lisa, prepare our diplomatic response, but also start working on alliance treaties with our colonies. The governors on the screen nodded. We'll start preparing our defenses, said Rick. How long do we have? Asked Helen. They said 1 year, the president replied. But I don't think they'll wait that long if we refuse their demands. Captain Nick Sullivan was chosen to deliver humanity's response. He was the best pilot in the fleet and commanded the fastest ship, the UES Harmony. The journey to the meeting point would take 3 weeks. Lisa worked with a team of writers to craft the message. It had to be respectful, but firm. It had to show that humans were reasonable, but would not be bullied. The message was simple. The people of Earth thank the Zephyrian Empire for their communication. We understand your concerns about order and stability in the galaxy. However, humanity cannot abandon the colonies we have built and the people who call them home. We propose a meeting to discuss how our species can coexist peacefully. We seek friendship, not conflict, but we will not abandon our people. When Nick's ship reached the meeting point, the Zephyrian vessel was already there. It was beautiful and terrible, like a giant crystal floating in space. Nick transmitted the human response and waited. The alien reply came quickly. Your species lacks wisdom. You have chosen poorly. When your year ends, you will face the consequences of your decision. Nick watched the crystal ship disappear into faster-than-light travel. As he turned his ship toward home, he knew that humanity had just declared war on an empire that controlled the galaxy. The question now was whether human courage and determination would be enough to survive what was coming. The deep space sensors at the edge of human territory started screaming warnings 6 months after the deadline had passed. Commander Kate Young stared at the readings and felt her blood turn cold. 300 ships were coming toward human space, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. "Get me Admiral Morrison," she said to her communications officer. "Priority Alpha. Tell him the Zephyrians are coming." On Luna Station, Jake Morrison looked at the sensor data and felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. The alien fleet was massive. Their flagship alone was 20 kilometers long, shaped like a giant crystal cathedral. The smaller ships were still 5 times bigger than Earth's largest warship. "How long until they reach the outer colonies?" Jake asked. 18 days to Proxima Colony," replied Lieutenant Commander Laura Price. 25 days to New Geneva. Jake turned to General Pete Davis, who had come to Luna Station to coordinate the defense. "What do we have out there?" "Proxima Colony has 12 defense platforms and a small patrol fleet. New Geneva has better defenses, but nothing that can stop this," Pete said, pointing at the screen. "Our biggest problem is that we don't know what their weapons can do." Dr. Amy Collins had been studying the sensor readings for hours. "Admiral, look at this. Their ships are giving off energy readings I've never seen before. The power source appears to be controlled stellar matter. They're essentially flying pieces of stars. Weapons? Jake asked. Unknown, but with that much power, they could probably turn a planet into dust. Colonel Tim Roberts was on Proxima Colony, the human settlement closest to the approaching fleet. He was a tough soldier who had fought in many battles, but he had never faced anything like this. His job was to organize the evacuation of 2 million people. How many ships do we have for evacuation? He asked his aide. 47 civilian transports and 18 military vessels, came the reply. That's enough for maybe half the population if we pack them in tight. Tim looked out the window at the city his people had built. Tall buildings reached toward the alien sky. Parks and schools filled with children who had never seen Earth. Factories that made goods for a dozen worlds. In 3 weeks it might all be gone. Start with the children and elderly, he ordered. Military families go last. And get me a direct line to Admiral Morrison. When the call connected, Tim didn't waste time. Admiral, we can't evacuate everyone. Even if we had enough ships, where would they go? The other colonies are just as much at risk. Jake's voice was heavy with the burden of command. Do what you can, Colonel. Save who you can save. What about fighting back? Tim asked. With what? You have 6 patrol boats and some mining ships with weapons bolted on. Their smallest escort vessel could probably destroy your entire defense fleet. On New Geneva, Commander Kate Young was having similar problems. Her colony was bigger and better defended, but the math was still impossible. 3 million people and not enough ships to move them all. Ma'am, said her tactical officer, we're getting reports from the other colonies. Everyone is asking the same question. Do we run or do we fight? Kate looked at the tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was moving in perfect formation, like a crystal arrowhead pointed at humanity's heart. Their ships moved together with precision that no human fleet could match. We fight, she said finally. Even if we can't win, we make them pay for every world they take. The alien fleet was led by Fleet Commander Kelnoth, a Zephyrian who had served the Empire for 800 years. He had personally overseen the correction of 12 species who had refused to accept Zephyrian order. Humans would be no different. Status. Report, he commanded from the bridge of the Eternal Order, the massive flagship. All ships in formation. No human military vessels detected in our path. Their colonies appear to be attempting evacuations, replied his aide. Let them run, Kelnoth said. Fear is a useful tool. Perhaps when they see our power, the rest of their species will accept wisdom. But the Zephyrian commander did not understand humans very well. As word of the approaching fleet spread through human space, something unexpected happened. Instead of panic, there was anger. Instead of surrender, there was determination. Captain Ben Ward commanded the small human fleet protecting Kepler Station, a mining and research outpost. He had 12 ships against 40 alien vessels that would arrive in 2 days. Any sane person would retreat. Instead, Ben called a meeting of his captains. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to face impossible odds, he said. Our ships are smaller, our weapons are weaker, and we're outnumbered 4-1. Anyone who wants to retreat can do so with no shame. Nobody moved. Then let's talk about how we're going to make these crystal bastards remember the day they messed with humanity. Dr. Collins was working frantically in her lab, analyzing every piece of data they had about Zephyrian technology. Their ships seemed to be grown rather than built, like living crystals that had been shaped into vessels. The energy reading suggested they used controlled fusion at the core of each ship. Admiral, she called Jake on the communicator, I think I found something. Their ships are beautiful, but they might have a weakness. Tell me, Jake said. Crystal. Structures are incredibly strong, but they're also rigid. They don't bend, they shatter. If we could find the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt their hull integrity. What kind of frequency? I don't know yet. We'd need to test it in combat. But sir, there's something else. The way their fleet moves, it's too perfect. No human formation could maintain that kind of precision. Meaning? Meaning they're probably controlled by a central intelligence. If we could disrupt their communications, their coordination might fall apart. Jake felt the first spark of hope he'd had in weeks. Keep working on it, Doctor. Send your findings to all fleet commanders. As the Zephyrian fleet approached the outer colonies, humanity prepared for the first real test of their resolve. The aliens had power, technology, and experience. But humans had something the Zephyrians couldn't understand: the willingness to fight impossible battles for the simple reason that they were the right battles to fight. On Proxima Colony, Tim Roberts stood with the volunteers who had chosen to stay and fight rather than evacuate. They were farmers, miners, teachers, and shop owners. None of them were professional soldiers, but all of them were human. "Sir," said a young woman who ran the local school, "what do you think our chances are?" Tim looked at the approaching fleet on his scanner, then at the determined faces around him. "Honestly, we're probably all going to die." "Then why are we staying?" Tim smiled. "Because someone has to show these aliens that humans don't give up. Someone has to prove that taking our worlds won't be easy, and maybe, just maybe, we'll learn something that helps Earth fight back." The woman nodded. "My students always said I was crazy. Guess they were right." As the Zephyrian fleet closed in on human space, both sides prepared for a war unlike any that had ever been fought. The aliens brought overwhelming power and 2,000 years of military experience. Humanity brought desperate courage and the unpredictable creativity that came from having nothing left to lose. In 18 hours, the first battle would begin. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when an unstoppable force met a species too stubborn to move. The Battle of Kepler Station began at exactly 0600 hours, ship time. Captain Ben Ward watched the Zephyrian fleet approach through the asteroid field that surrounded the mining station. 40 alien ships moved in perfect formation, their crystal, hulls glowing with contained stellar energy. "All ships, this is Ward," he said into his communicator. "Remember the plan. Hit and run. Make them chase us through the rocks. Don't try to match their firepower, because we can't." The human fleet consisted of 12 ships, 6 patrol vessels, 4 mining ships with weapons attached, and 2 supply freighters that had volunteered to fight. Against 40 Zephyrian warships, it should have been over in minutes. Lieutenant. Commander Laura Price commanded the patrol ship UES Defiant. She had studied the alien fleet movements for hours and noticed something important. "Captain Ward, they're moving like they're dancing. Every ship knows exactly where every other ship will be." "That's their strength," Ben replied. "Perfect coordination." "No, sir, that's their weakness. They can't adapt if something unexpected happens." Ben understood immediately. "All ships, execute Chaos Pattern Alpha. Random movements, random targets, make them guess what we're going to do." The human ships scattered like startled fish. Instead of fighting in formation, each captain chose their own path through the asteroid field. The Zephyrian fleet hesitated for just a moment, as if their commanders couldn't understand what the humans were doing. That moment of confusion saved human lives. Laura dove her ship between two large asteroids, using their gravity to slingshot toward a Zephyrian destroyer. Her railgun fired continuously, the metal slugs sparking off the aliens' energy shields. "Shields holding," reported her weapons officer. "Our guns aren't penetrating." "Keep firing," Laura said. "We're not trying to kill them yet. We're trying to learn." Captain Roy Beck, commanding the mining ship Iron Mountain, had a different idea. His ship was slow and heavily armored, built to survive asteroid impacts. He pointed it directly at the largest Zephyrian vessel he could find and opened the engines to full power. "Sir, we're on a collision course," his pilot said. "I know," Roy replied calmly. "Let's see how good their reflexes are." The Zephyrian ship tried to move out of the way, but Roy followed, using his knowledge of mining operations to predict the aliens' movements. At the last second, he fired his ship's mining laser directly into the enemy's engine section. The crystal hull cracked. Not much, but enough to prove that Zephyrian ships could be damaged. "All ships, this is Beck," he announced. "Mining lasers work. Aim for the engine sections." Commander Kate Young was fighting 3 Zephyrian ships at once with her patrol vessel. Her ship was faster than the aliens expected, and she used that speed to stay alive. She flew through the asteroid field like she was born in space, using every rock and piece of debris as cover. "Ma'am, we've got a problem," her tactical officer said. "They're learning. They're starting to predict our movements." Kate looked at her displays. The officer was right. The Zephyrian ships were adapting to human tactics faster than expected. Their perfect coordination was beginning to counter human unpredictability. "All human ships. This is Young," she broadcast. "Change tactics. Aggressive close combat. Get inside their formation and cause chaos." It was a desperate plan, but desperation was all they had. The human ships dove straight at the Zephyrian fleet, flying between the larger vessels and firing at point-blank range. The aliens couldn't use their most powerful weapons without risking damage to their own ships. For a few minutes, it worked. The Zephyrian formation broke apart as they tried to track multiple small targets moving in random patterns. Human weapons found weak spots in crystal hulls. 2 alien ships suffered major damage, but the Zephyrians had been fighting wars for 2,000 years. They adapted. The alien flagship began emitting a low-frequency pulse that seemed to coordinate all their movements. Suddenly, every Zephyrian ship knew where every human ship was going to be. The crystal vessels moved like parts of a single organism, surrounding and isolating the human vessels one by one. "Ward to all ships," Ben said. "They've figured us out. Retreat to Rally Point 7. But it was too late for some. The mining ship Stone Runner, commanded by Captain Dave Miller, was caught between 3 Zephyrian destroyers. Dave was a tough miner who had spent his life pulling ore from dangerous asteroids, but this was different. "Engine hit," his engineer reported. "We're losing power." Dave looked at his crew. They were good people who had volunteered to fight when they could have run. "All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." "Sir, we can still fight," his weapons officer said. "No," Dave replied. "This ship is done, but you people have families. Go." As his crew evacuated, Dave set the ship's reactor to overload and pointed it at the nearest Zephyrian vessel. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The battle continued for 3 hours. The humans fought with courage and creativity, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, their ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. Ben Ward's ship was the last to leave, as he watched Kepler Station being destroyed by Zephyrian planet killer weapons, he transmitted one final message to Earth. "This is Captain Ward to Earth Command. Kepler Station has fallen. Enemy casualties. Confirmed damage to 6 vessels, 2 destroyed. Human casualties, 7 ships lost. Station destroyed. But we learned something important. Their shields can be penetrated with sustained fire at close range. Their coordination depends on communication from their flagship, and they don't like surprises." Dr. Amy Collins received the transmission on Luna Station and immediately began analyzing the battle data. The information was bought with human blood, but it might save Earth. "Admiral Morrison," she called. "The Kepler battle data confirms my theory. Zephyrian technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also inflexible. They have standard responses to standard tactics. When Captain Ward's people started fighting unpredictably, the aliens had trouble adapting." Jake Morrison looked tired. He had been awake for 36 hours, coordinating humanity's desperate defense. "What else do we know? Their ships are tough, but they can be damaged. Mining lasers seem to work better than conventional weapons, and their perfect coordination might be their weakness if we can disrupt it." "How do we disrupt it?" Amy pointed to the data. Their flagship was broadcasting some kind of coordination signal. If we could jam or destroy that signal, their fleet might lose cohesion. Jake nodded. "Send this analysis to all fleet commanders. And Amy, good work." As the news of Kepler Station's fall reached Earth, something unexpected happened. Instead of despair, there was determination. The human colonies began preparing for invasion with grim resolve. Factories started working around the clock to build new weapons based on the battle data. On Proxima Colony, Colonel Tim Roberts received the Kepler analysis and immediately started planning his defense. "All mining equipment is now military hardware," he announced. "Every laser drill, every rock crusher, every piece of heavy machinery. If the Zephyrians want this world, they're going to have to dig us out piece by piece." The evacuation ships were still loading refugees, but thousands of colonists chose to stay and fight. They were farmers, miners, engineers, and shopkeepers. They weren't soldiers, but they were human. "Sir," asked his aide, "do you really think we can win?" Tim looked at the reports from Kepler Station. Captain Ben Ward and his people had faced impossible odds and still managed to hurt the enemy. They had proven that Zephyrian ships could be damaged and Zephyrian tactics could be disrupted. "Maybe not," Tim said, "but we can make them pay for every inch of ground, and maybe that will give Earth the time they need to prepare." The Zephyrian fleet continued toward the human colonies, but Fleet Commander Kel Noth was troubled by the Kepler battle. The humans had fought differently than any species he had encountered before. They didn't follow military doctrine or logical tactics. They improvised and adapted in ways that made no sense. "Analysis of human combat effectiveness," he ordered. "His tactical officer. Their ships are inferior in every measurable way," came the report. "But their tactical choices are completely unpredictable. Our combat algorithms had difficulty processing their movements. Kelnoth had conquered species with better technology and larger fleets. But none of them had fought like the humans at Kepler Station. None of them had turned mining ships into warships or used suicide attacks as tactical weapons. Increase fleet coordination protocols, he ordered, and prepare the planet killer weapons. These humans must be eliminated quickly before they cause more disruption. The first battle was over, but both sides had learned important lessons. The Zephyrians had confirmed their technological superiority, but they had also discovered that human unpredictability could disrupt their perfect tactics. Humanity had lost ships and people, but they had proven that the mighty Zephyrian fleet could bleed. More importantly, they had shown that humans would fight impossible battles simply because they were the right battles to fight. The war was just beginning. The news from Kepler Station hit Earth like a thunderbolt. Every television, radio, and computer screen carried the same message. Humanity was at war with an alien empire, and the enemy was winning. But instead of panic, something remarkable happened. Across the planet, people began to unite in ways that had never been seen before. Old enemies became allies. Rich and poor worked side by side. Every human understood that their species faced extinction. Dr. Alan Hughes was pulled from his quiet research lab and given the most important job in human history: find a way to fight the Zephyrians. He was a scientist who studied quantum physics. Not a weapons designer, but war makes soldiers of everyone. "What do we know about their technology?" he asked Dr. Amy Collins as they reviewed the battle data from Kepler Station. "Their ships appear to be made of living crystal that can channel stellar energy," Amy replied. "The crystal structure is incredibly strong, but Captain Ward's people proved it can be damaged with sustained fire." Alan studied the recordings of Zephyrian ships. The way light moved through their hulls reminded him of something from his research. "Amy, what if their crystal hulls aren't just armor? What if they're actually part of a massive quantum resonance system? Meaning their entire fleet might be connected at a quantum level. That's how they coordinate so perfectly. But quantum systems are fragile. If we could disrupt the resonance..." Amy's eyes lit up with understanding. Their ships would lose coordination and maybe even structural integrity. "Exactly. But we'd need to generate a quantum field large enough to affect their entire fleet. That's way beyond our current technology." Admiral Jake Morrison found them working frantically in the lab 3 days later. "Please tell me you have good news, doctors." "Maybe," Alan said. "But we need resources, lots of them. And we need every physicist on Earth working on this problem." "Done," Jake said without hesitation. "What else?" "Time," Amy said. "We need time to build and test the quantum resonance disruptors." Jake looked at the star charts showing the Zephyrian fleet's progress. "Proxima Colony has maybe 2 weeks before they arrive. New Geneva has 3 weeks. Earth has 6 weeks if we're lucky." "Then we work around the clock," Alan said. Across Earth, the greatest scientific minds began working together. Professors from universities, researchers from corporations, and engineers from space agencies all focused on one goal: find a weakness in Zephyrian technology. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison assembled the largest military force in human history. Every warship from every nation joined the defense fleet. Civilian ships were converted to carry weapons. Even old museum pieces were brought back to service. Captain Roy Beck, who had survived the Battle of Kepler Station, was promoted and given command of the new dreadnought UES Defiance. It was humanity's largest warship, built with every lesson learned from the first battle. "Sir," his engineering officer said, "the ship has been fitted with the new quantum resonance transmitters that Dr. Hughes designed, but they're untested." "Everything about this war is untested," Roy replied. "We're making it up as we go along." Chief Engineer Sophie Barnes was working 18-hour days converting civilian vessels into warships. Her teams welded armor plates onto passenger ships and mounted mining lasers on cargo haulers. "Ma'am," said one of her assistants, "this freighter wasn't designed for combat. The structure might not hold up under weapons fire." Sophie looked at the ship being modified. It used to carry supplies to the outer colonies. Now it would carry the hopes of humanity into battle. "Then we make it stronger, weld more support beams, add more armor. These ships don't need to be beautiful, they need to be tough. but the most important work was happening in secret locations around Earth. Dr. Hughes and his team were building quantum resonance transmitters, devices that could theoretically disrupt Zephyrian coordination systems. The problem is power, Alan explained to Jake during one of their daily meetings. To generate a field large enough to affect their entire fleet, we need more energy than our biggest power plants can produce. What if we used multiple transmitters? Jake asked. That might work, but they'd need to be perfectly synchronized. Even a few milliseconds of difference would ruin the effect. Amy had been listening quietly. What about using the solar system itself as a synchronization network? We could place transmitters on planets and moons using their orbital positions to create natural timing. Alan stared at her. That's actually brilliant. The gravitational fields would provide natural synchronization, but we'd need transmitters throughout the solar system. How many? Jake asked. At least 20, positioned from Jupiter to Earth orbit. Jake made a decision that would commit humanity's entire industrial capacity to one desperate plan. Start building them. I'll get you the resources. As the scientific teams worked, the colonies continued their desperate fights. Proxima Colony fell after a 2-week siege. Colonel Tim Roberts and his volunteers fought street by street, building by building, making the Zephyrians pay for every meter of ground. His final transmission was simple. Proxima Colony has fallen. Enemy casualties. 12 ships damaged, 3 destroyed. They had to use planet-killer weapons to finish us. Human casualties, total. Tell Earth we held them for 14 days. New Geneva lasted longer. Commander Kate Young had better defenses and more time to prepare. Her people turned the entire colony into a fortress, with weapons hidden in every building and tunnel. The Zephyrians expected quick victory. Instead, they faced guerrilla warfare from humans who knew every hiding place on their world. Kate's fighters used the tactics from Kepler Station, combined with knowledge of their own terrain. They're adapting to our tactics faster than expected, Kate reported to Earth during a brief lull in the fighting. But we're adapting too. Every day, we learn something new about how they fight. The battle for New Geneva became a testing ground for new human weapons. The quantum resonance devices that Dr. Hughes was developing were tested in small-scale combat. The results were promising but inconsistent. The theory is sound, Kate reported, but the devices need more power and better focusing systems. On Earth, the work continued frantically. Factory worker Mary Jones led production teams that never stopped working. They built transmitter components with precision that had never been achieved before. Miss Jones, said one of her workers during a rare break, do you really think this plan will work? Mary looked at the quantum transmitter component she was assembling. It was beautiful in its complexity, a device that represented the best of human science and engineering. I don't know if it will work, she said honestly, but I know we have to try. Pilot instructor Chris Lewis was training volunteer pilots in new combat techniques. Most of his students were civilians who had never flown military ships before. Remember, he told them, we can't match their firepower, so we don't try. We use speed, confusion, and surprise. Make them react to us instead of following their plans. Sir, asked one young pilot, what if we're just not good enough? Chris looked at the determined faces around him. These people had given up safe jobs and comfortable lives to fight for humanity's survival. You're good enough, he said. You're human. That has to be enough. As the Zephyrian fleet approached Earth, Dr. Hughes finally completed the first full-scale quantum resonance transmitter. It was installed on Luna Station, where Admiral Morrison could coordinate its use. How do we know it will work? Jake asked. We Don't, Alan admitted, but the small-scale tests suggest that quantum resonance can disrupt Zephyrian technology. If we can generate a large enough field, their fleet coordination should collapse. And if it doesn't work? Amy looked at the approaching enemy fleet on the tactical display. Then we fight them ship to ship with everything we have. Maybe we can't win, but we can show the galaxy that humanity doesn't give up. The final preparations were completed with only days to spare. 20 quantum resonance transmitters were positioned throughout the solar system, from Jupiter's moons to Earth's orbit. Each one was protected by human warships and operated by volunteers who knew they might not survive the battle. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, looking at the largest fleet in human history. 150 ships, from mighty dreadnoughts to converted freighters, all crewed by people who refused to surrender. All ships. This is Morrison, he announced. In a few hours, we'll face an enemy that has conquered the galaxy for 2,000 years. They have better ships, better weapons, and more experience. But they don't have what we have, the absolute refusal to give up. He paused, looking at Earth through the bridge windows. The blue planet where humanity was born, where billions of people waited to see if their species would survive. Today we fight not just for our lives, but for our right to exist among the stars. Today we show the galaxy what happens when someone tries to cage humanity. All ships, prepare for battle. The Zephyrian fleet appeared on the edge of the solar system like a constellation of crystal stars. 300 ships of devastating power, led by Fleet Commander Kelnoth, who had never lost a battle, but he had never fought humans before. The Zephyrian armada entered Earth's solar system like a nightmare made of crystal and starlight. 300 ships arranged in perfect geometric formations, their hulls glowing with contained stellar energy. At the center, the massive flagship. Eternal order dwarfed even Jupiter's moons. Fleet Commander Kelnoth stood on his bridge, studying the primitive solar system that would soon be cleansed of human presence. His species had ruled the galaxy for 2 millennia, bringing order to chaos and peace to conflict. Humanity would be just another footnote in Zephyrian history. Analysis of human defensive positions, he commanded. His tactical officer activated the holographic display. 150 vessels detected, ranging from military dreadnoughts to converted civilian ships. They have positioned themselves in 3 defensive lines between Jupiter and Earth. Pathetic, Kelnoth said. Their largest vessel is smaller than our escort frigates. How long to reach their home world? 16 hours at current speed, assuming minimal resistance. On Luna Station, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the alien fleet approach and felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on him. The Zephyrians moved with the confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. All stations, this is Morrison, he announced to the human fleet. Enemy contact in approximately 4 hours. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for, Dr. Allen. Hughes was making final adjustments to the quantum resonance transmitters positioned throughout the solar system. 20 stations, each one a miracle of human engineering, all synchronized to create the largest quantum field ever attempted. Dr. Hughes, called his assistant, the transmitters on Titan and Europa are showing power fluctuations. Boost the backup generators, Allen replied. We only get one chance at this. Captain Roy Beck stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's most powerful warship. Around him, his crew prepared for a battle that would determine whether their species survived to see another day. Sir, his weapons officer reported, all systems are green. Quantum resonance device is ready for activation. Good, Roy said. Remember, We're not just trying to win this battle. We're trying to send a message that humanity won't be pushed around. The first contact came near Jupiter's orbit, where Captain Lisa Murphy commanded a squadron of converted mining ships. Her vessels were tough but slow, armed with industrial lasers that had been modified for combat. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, her sensor operator announced. 40 enemy vessels approaching. Lisa looked at her tactical display. 40. Crystal ships against her 12 converted miners. The odds were impossible, but that had never stopped humans before. All ships, this is Murphy. Remember the plan. Use the gas giants' radiation belts as cover. Make them come to us. The Zephyrian ships moved in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls reflecting Jupiter's swirling storms. They expected the humans to retreat or surrender. Instead, Lisa's ships dove into the planet's dangerous radiation fields, where the charged particles would interfere with sensitive equipment. "They're following us into the radiation belt," her navigator reported. "Good," Lisa said. "Let's see how their pretty crystal ships handle a real electromagnetic storm." The human ships, built for the harsh conditions of deep space mining, handled the radiation better than expected. The Zephyrian vessels, optimized for clean space combat, began experiencing system fluctuations. "Now," Lisa commanded. "All ships, attack pattern Delta." Her miners swarmed out of the radiation belt like angry wasps, their industrial lasers cutting into Zephyrian hulls at close range. The aliens had superior firepower, but the humans had chosen the battlefield and the terms of engagement. The Battle of Jupiter's Belt lasted 3 hours. When it ended, Lisa's squadron was gone, but they had taken 8 Zephyrian ships with them and forced the enemy to waste time and resources on what should have been a minor skirmish. "This is Murphy to Earth." "Command," came her final transmission. "Jupiter defense line has fallen, but enemy advance has been delayed by 6 hours. They don't like fighting in bad weather. Use that information." Fleet Commander Kelnoth was beginning to understand that these humans were unlike any species he had encountered. They didn't fight logical battles or follow predictable tactics. They used their environment as a weapon and turned every disadvantage into an opportunity. "Increase fleet speed," he ordered. "I want to reach their home world before they can organize more surprises." But the humans had prepared more than surprises. The second defensive line was positioned in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, where thousands of rocky fragments provided cover and confusion. Commander Nick Sullivan led this defense from the bridge of the UES Harmony. His job was to slow the Zephyrian advance and test their new quantum resonance weapons. "Sir," his science officer reported, "we're detecting the same coordination signals that Dr. Collins predicted. Their entire fleet is connected through quantum resonance." "Then let's see what happens when we disrupt it," Nick said. "Activate local resonance disruptor." The small quantum device on Nick's ship began broadcasting a counter-frequency designed to interfere with Zephyrian coordination. For a moment, the enemy formation wavered as ships lost their perfect synchronization. "It's working," his officer announced. "Enemy coordination is breaking down." But the effect lasted only minutes. The Zephyrians quickly adapted, boosting their signal strength and filtering out the human interference. Their formation reformed, tighter than before. "Well," Nick said, "now we know it works. Time to buy Earth some more time to get ready." The Battle of the Asteroid Belt became a deadly game of hide-and-seek among the floating rocks. Human ships darted between asteroids, using the rocky cover to launch surprise attacks. Zephyrian vessels responded with overwhelming firepower, shattering asteroids to eliminate hiding places. Captain Dave Chen, commanding the destroyer UES Vigilant, found himself alone against 3 enemy cruisers. His ship was fast but lightly armed, designed for reconnaissance rather than combat. "Sir, we're outgunned," his tactical officer said. "Then we don't fight fair," Dave replied. He pointed his ship at the largest asteroid in the area and fired all weapons at its base. The massive rock broke free from its orbit and began tumbling toward the Zephyrian formation. The aliens tried to destroy the asteroid with their energy weapons, but that only broke it into thousands of smaller pieces. The debris cloud scattered their formation and gave Dave the opportunity to escape. Throughout the belt, human captains used similar tactics. They turned the environment into a weapon, using gravity, radiation, and debris to level the playing field against superior alien technology. But slowly, inevitably, the Zephyrian fleet pushed through. Their ships were too tough and their firepower too great. One by one, the human defenders were overwhelmed. "This is Sullivan to Earth Command," Nick transmitted as his ship took critical damage. "Asteroid belt defenses falling back. Enemy has lost approximately 30 ships, but they're still coming. Estimate 6 hours until they reach Mars orbit." On Earth, President Carl Bradley watched the battle reports with growing determination. Every human ship lost was buying time for the quantum resonance network to be completed. "How long until the transmitters are ready?" he asked Dr. Hughes. 4 hours for the network to be fully synchronized," Allen replied. "But, sir, we still don't know if it will work on such a large scale." "It has to work," the president said simply. "It's all we have left." The third and final defensive line was positioned near Mars, where Admiral Morrison himself led the last major human fleet. 80 ships, including the mighty UES Defiance, waited to make humanity's final stand before Earth itself came under attack. "All ships, this is Morrison," the Admiral announced. "This is it. Behind us is Earth. Behind us are our families, our children, our future. The Zephyrians think we're just another species to be conquered. Let's show them what humans are really made of." Captain Roy Beck, commanding the Defiance, looked at his crew. They were tired from weeks of preparation, scared of the approaching enemy, but absolutely determined to protect their home world. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Put it on." "Screen," Roy ordered. Fleet Commander Kelnoth appeared on the display, his crystalline form glowing with controlled energy. "I am Fleet Commander Kelnoth of the Zephyrian Empire. Your resistance has been noted but is futile. Surrender now, and your species will be allowed to survive under our guidance." Admiral Morrison stepped forward. "This is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Fleet. We have a counteroffer for you." "Speak," Kelnoth said. Morrison's voice was calm and steady. "Turn around and leave our space. Do that, and we won't have to destroy your entire fleet." For a moment, Kelnoth was silent. Then he began to emit a sound that might have been laughter. "You speak of destroying us? Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. Your small ships are insects compared to our might." "Maybe," Morrison said, "but insects can be very annoying when they swarm, and sometimes they carry diseases that can kill much larger creatures." The transmission ended. On both sides, final preparations began for the battle that would determine the fate of humanity. The Zephyrian fleet approached Mars orbit with the confidence of conquerors. They had crushed 3 defensive lines and destroyed. The space around Mars became a battlefield unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrian fleet, still over 200 ships strong, faced the last organized human defense. 80 vessels commanded by Admiral Morrison and held together by nothing but determination and courage. Captain Roy Beck watched the enemy formation through the bridge windows of the UES Defiance. The alien ships moved like deadly crystal dancers, their hulls glowing with stellar fire. Each one was beautiful and terrible, a work of art designed to destroy worlds. Enemy fleet entering weapons range, his tactical officer announced. All ships, this is Morrison, came the Admiral's voice over the communication system. Remember the plan. Draw them in close. Make them think they're winning. When I give the signal, scatter and prepare for quantum resonance activation. The human fleet spread out in a loose formation that looked weak and disorganized. To the Zephyrians, it must have seemed like humanity's last desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. Fleet Commander Kelnoth studied the human formation from his flagship. After weeks of fighting these strange creatures, he thought he understood them. They were brave but foolish, creative but chaotic. They fought without logic and died without purpose. All ships, advance to close combat range, he ordered. Finish this quickly. I want their home world to see their defenders destroyed before we begin the cleansing. The crystal ships accelerated toward the human fleet, their weapons charging with deadly energy. The first shots lit up space with beams of pure destruction, tearing through human armor like paper. The UES Vigilant, already damaged from the asteroid belt battle, took a direct hit and exploded in a ball of fire. Captain Sarah Kim's ship, the converted freighter New Hope, lost its engines and began spinning helplessly toward Mars's gravity well. "This is Kim to all ships," she transmitted calmly. "My ship is dead, but my weapons still work. I'm taking as many of them with me as I can." She pointed her crippled vessel at the nearest Zephyrian cruiser and fired everything she had. The freighter rammed into the alien ship at full speed, both vessels disappearing in a massive explosion. The battle seemed to be going exactly as Kelnoth expected. Human ships were being destroyed faster than they could respond. Their weapons barely scratched Zephyrian hulls, while alien energy beams cut through human armor like it didn't exist. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "human fleet is beginning to scatter. They appear to be retreating toward their home world." "Pursue them," Kelnoth ordered. "Don't let any escape." But Admiral Morrison wasn't retreating. He was positioning his ships exactly where they needed to be for humanity's last desperate gamble. On Luna Station, Dr. Alan Hughes watched the battle. Through his instruments while making final adjustments to the quantum resonance network. 20 transmitters positioned throughout the solar system, each one aimed at a specific point in space where the Zephyrian fleet would be in exactly 3 minutes. "Dr. Hughes," his assistant called out, "the transmitter on Europa is showing power fluctuations again." "Compensate with the backup systems," Alan replied, sweat dripping down his face. "We only get one shot at this." Captain Nick Sullivan, commanding the rebuilt UES Harmony, was following a dangerous course directly toward the Zephyrian flagship. His ship was fast but lightly armed, and he was flying straight into the teeth of the enemy formation. "Sir, this is suicide," his pilot said. "Maybe," Nick replied, "but someone has to get close enough to test the quantum resonance at point-blank range." His ship dodged through the battle, using destroyed human vessels as cover. Zephyrian energy. Beams missed him by meters, close enough to overload his shields and damage his hull. "Admiral Morrison, this is Sullivan," he transmitted. "I'm in position. Whatever you're going to do, do it now." Morrison looked at his tactical display. The Zephyrian fleet was spread throughout the battle area, exactly where the quantum resonance network needed them to be. It was time to find out if human science could defeat alien technology. "Dr. Hughes, activate the network," Morrison ordered. On 20 worlds and moons throughout the solar system, quantum resonance transmitters came online simultaneously. Each one began broadcasting, a specific frequency designed to disrupt the quantum fields that held Zephyrian technology together. For a moment, nothing happened. The alien ships continued their advance, their weapons continued firing, their perfect formation remained intact. Then space itself seemed to shiver. The quantum field generated by 20 transmitters, working in perfect harmony, created a resonance cascade that swept through the solar system faster than light. When it reached the Zephyrian fleet, their crystal hulls began to vibrate at frequencies they were never designed to handle. "What is happening?" Kelnoth demanded as his flagship shuddered around him. "Unknown energy interference," his science officer reported. "All ships are reporting quantum resonance failures. Hull integrity is compromised across the fleet." The beautiful crystal ships that had seemed so indestructible began to crack like glass sculptures in an earthquake. The stellar energy contained within their hulls, normally controlled by perfect quantum fields, started to go chaotic. Captain Roy Beck watched in amazement as the Zephyrian vessel closest to him simply came apart. The crystal hull fractured along invisible lines, and the controlled star at its heart erupted in a brief supernova that lit up the entire battlefield. "All ships, this is Morrison," the Admiral's voice crackled over the communications. "The quantum resonance is working. Attack now while their defenses are down." The surviving human ships, many damaged but still fighting, turned toward the crippled alien fleet. Mining lasers and rail guns that had barely scratched Zephyrian armor now tore through hulls that had lost their quantum reinforcement. Nick Sullivan's ship was closest to the enemy flagship when the cascade hit. He watched the massive vessel, 20 kilometers of crystal perfection, begin to break apart like a shattered window. "This is Sullivan to Earth Command," he transmitted, his voice filled with wonder. "The flagship is breaking up. Repeat." The enemy flagship is destroyed, but Kelnoth was not finished. As his ship came apart around him, he activated the ultimate weapon of the Zephyrian Empire, a planet killer that drew power directly from the quantum void itself. "If we cannot have order," he transmitted on all frequencies, "then we will have destruction. Earth will burn, and with it the chaos that is humanity." The weapon began charging, drawing energy from the dying ship's stellar core. In 60 seconds, it would fire a beam capable of turning Earth into cosmic dust. Captain Roy Beck saw the energy build up on his sensors and understood immediately what was happening. The Defiance was the only human ship close enough and powerful, enough to stop the planet killer from firing. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced to his crew. "We have 1 minute to save Earth. Engineering, give me everything you've got. Weapons, prepare for ramming speed." His ship accelerated toward the dying flagship, its engines pushed beyond their design limits. Zephyrian debris bounced off his hull as he flew through the wreckage of their fleet. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "if we hit them while that weapon is charging, the explosion will destroy us too." "I know," Roy said simply, "but Earth will survive." The UES Defiance struck the Zephyrian flagship just as the planet killer reached full charge. The collision triggered a quantum cascade failure that turned the weapon's energy back on itself. Both ships vanished in an explosion that briefly outshone the sun. When the light faded, the battlefield was silent except for drifting debris. The mighty Zephyrian fleet, which had conquered the galaxy for 2,000 years, was gone. Not a single alien ship remained intact. Admiral Morrison looked at his tactical display in stunned silence. They had done it. Against impossible odds, with inferior technology and smaller numbers, humanity had destroyed the Zephyrian Empire's invasion fleet. "All ships, report status," he ordered. The responses came in slowly. Of the 80 ships that had fought in the final battle, only 37 remained operational. The cost had been terrible, but Earth was safe. "Admiral Morrison to Earth Command," he transmitted. "The Zephyrian fleet has been destroyed. Repeat, enemy fleet destroyed. Earth is secure." On the planet below, billions of people looked up at the sky where explosions had briefly turned night into day. They didn't know the details of what had happened, but they knew their defenders had won. Dr. Hughes collapsed into his chair as the quantum resonance network powered down. The transmitters had worked perfectly, but the energy requirements had burned out most of the equipment. It would take years to rebuild the network. "Dr. Hughes," his assistant said, "we're getting reports from deep space monitors. The quantum cascade effect spread beyond our solar system. It might have affected Zephyrian territory." Hughes looked at the data streaming in from long-range sensors. The quantum resonance hadn't stopped at the edge of the solar system. It had propagated through space at faster-than-light speeds, following the same quantum channels that the Zephyrians used for communication. "My God," he whispered. "What have we done?" Captain Kate Young, now commanding one of the few surviving human ships, received orders to lead an expedition to Zephyrian space. What they found there would change everything they thought they knew about victory and its consequences. 3 months after the Battle of Mars, the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet still drifted through Earth's solar system like a graveyard of crystal stars. Each piece of debris told the story of an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 2 millennia, only to be destroyed by a species they considered primitive. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the newly built UES Explorer, watching salvage crews collect alien technology from the battlefield. The quantum resonance cascade had shattered the Zephyrian ships so completely that most of their advanced systems were beyond repair. "Admiral," called Dr. Amy Collins from behind him, "we've finished analyzing the debris field. The results are disturbing." Jake turned to face the scientist who had helped discover the key to defeating the aliens. "Disturbing how?" Amy activated a holographic display showing the solar system. "The quantum cascade didn't stop here. Our deep space monitors detected the resonance wave traveling outward at faster-than-light speeds. It followed the same quantum channels the Zephyrians used for communication, meaning it reached their home territories?" "Yes, sir. And we haven't detected any Zephyrian signals since the battle. No communications, no ship movements, nothing." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. "You're saying we might have affected their entire empire?" "That's what we need to find out," Amy said. "The President has authorized an expedition to Zephyrian space. You're to command it." The expedition fleet consisted of 12 ships, led by the UES Explorer, and including several vessels that had survived the Great Battle. Captain Kate Young commanded the destroyer UES Vigilant II, built to replace the ship lost at Mars. Captain Nick Sullivan flew the scout ship UES Harmony, rebuilt and upgraded with salvaged alien technology. Dr. Alan Hughes had insisted on joining the expedition, despite the dangers. "I designed the quantum resonance network," he told Jake. "If we've caused some kind of galactic disaster, I need to see it for myself." The journey to the nearest Zephyrian system took 6 weeks using humanity's best faster-than-light drives. As they approached the edge of what had been the Empire's territory, the silence was deafening. No ships, no signals, no activity of any kind, reported the communications officer. Sir, it's like they just disappeared. The first Zephyrian world they visited was called Crystalline Prime, according to the records recovered from the debris. It should have been a bustling center of galactic civilization, home to millions of crystal beings. Instead, they found a tomb. "My God," whispered Captain Young as her ship entered orbit around the planet. "Look at those cities." The surface was covered with vast crystalline structures that reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. They were beautiful, beyond human. Imagination, perfect geometric forms that seemed to grow from the planet itself. But they were also completely lifeless. "No energy readings, no movement, no signs of life," reported the science officer. "The cities appear to be intact but abandoned." Dr. Hughes led the landing party that descended to the planet's surface. What they found there would haunt human dreams for generations. The crystal cities were perfect in every detail. Streets of polished stone led between buildings that seemed to be grown rather than built. Everything was clean, orderly, and absolutely silent. There was no decay, no damage, no sign of struggle. "It's like they just stopped," Hughes said into his communicator as he explored a vast library filled with crystal data storage devices. "Everything is perfectly preserved, but there's no one here." They found evidence of the Zephyrians everywhere. Personal items, art, technology, even what might have been family photographs stored in crystal matrices. But of the aliens themselves, there was no trace. Dr. Hughes called one of his team, members from across the library. "You need to see this." The team member was standing in front of a massive crystal wall covered with flowing script. The writing seemed to move and change as they watched, like living language. "It's some kind of final record," Hughes said, using his translation device to decode the alien symbols. "It says, 'The chaos has come. The quantum harmony is broken. Order ends. We return to the void.'" Amy Collins joined the landing party at the planet's largest structure, a crystal cathedral that rose 30 kilometers into the sky. Inside, they found the answer to what had happened to the Zephyrian Empire. "They're here," she said softly. The cathedral was filled with crystal statues, thousands upon thousands of them. Each one was a perfect reproduction of a Zephyrian in their final moments. Some seemed to be reaching toward the sky, others appeared to be singing or dancing. "They're not statues," Amy realized as she studied them more closely. "They're the Zephyrians themselves. The quantum cascade turned them into crystal." Dr. Hughes ran his scanner over the nearest figure. "Their entire molecular structure has been locked into a crystalline matrix. They're not dead exactly, they're just frozen in time." The expedition team spent days exploring the crystal world, documenting what they found. Every Zephyrian city told the same story, a civilization that had achieved perfect order, only to be undone by the chaos of human quantum resonance. "Admiral," Kate reported from orbit, "we're detecting similar conditions on all inhabited worlds in this system. No life signs, no activity, but perfect preservation of their cities and technology." The exploration continued for weeks as the human fleet visited world after world of the former Zephyrian Empire. They found 847 planets that had once teemed with crystal life, now silent monuments to a civilization that had valued order above all else. On the capital, world of the Empire, they discovered the greatest tragedy of all. The planetary palace contained millions of crystallized Zephyrians, including what appeared to be the Empire's leadership. They had been preserved in their final moments, when the quantum cascade reached them across space. They made themselves vulnerable, Hughes said, as he studied the Crystal Emperor sitting on his throne of pure energy. Their pursuit of perfect order, their quantum synchronization across the entire empire, it created a single point of failure. Meaning? Asked Jake. Meaning that when we disrupted their quantum harmony, it propagated through their entire civilization. Every Zephyrian on every world connected through the same quantum network that made them so powerful. Amy looked at the crystallized beings around them. They became victims of their own perfection. The expedition made one final discovery that changed everything they thought they knew about the war. In the Emperor's palace, they found recordings of the Empire's final moments. The crystal displays showed Fleet Commander Kelnoth's last transmission from the Battle of Mars. As the quantum cascade reached Zephyrian space, the Emperor had sent one final message to his people. Citizens of the Eternal Empire, the chaos has spread beyond containment. The quantum harmony that has sustained us for 2 millennia is breaking down. We have failed to stop the human infection. May the void have mercy on our ordered souls. They were terrified of us, Amy said as she watched the recording. Not because we were strong, but because we were unpredictable. To a species that had achieved perfect order, human chaos was like a virus. Jake felt the weight of what they had discovered. Humanity hadn't just won a war, they had accidentally destroyed an entire galactic civilization. The Zephyrians' greatest strength had become their ultimate weakness when faced with human unpredictability. "What do we do now?" asked Kate. Jake looked around at the Crystal Palace, at the frozen empire that had once ruled the stars. "We learn from this. We make sure it never happens again." The expedition returned to Earth with news that would reshape humanity's understanding of their place in the galaxy.